go over, we were gonna have this up there, but, everybody has a picture in front of them. Just give you a quick run through this, really quick. The first page is just showing our student trend over the years from 2011-12 through next year. We're looking at, again, a 300 student decrease. If you look at the years where it didn't decrease in 2012-13 to 13-14, that's when we brought Inkster in. And then this past year, we only had 109 student loss. So hope for better next year, but we budget at 300 student loss. The next one is you're looking at the trend from 2010-11 of the state aid per pupil. Back in 2010-11, we were at 7,957. We're at 7,871 next year.
There yet.
Still not back to where we were. So the next page is just showing where our revenue sources come from by percentage. Again, our state sources are about 76%. That's why that student decrease drives the major percent of our revenues. The general fund revenues in millions. Again, the trend, this is also deceptive because if you start looking in 14-15, that's when we started getting the 147 funding. That's the flow through funds. So our net revenues, actually, if you were to compare revenues from, if you go to 16-17, we had net revenues of 98.6 million. This past year, we had net revenues of 103.1. So again, that's where that $4.5 million boost was there. Next year, our net revenues projected are going to be at 101.8. So we're projected to actually lose in net revenues next year. So we're losing losing about 1.4 million. That's the special education reimbursement decrease. Okay. General fund expenditures. This is a really interesting thing. This goes back to the 20 retirees and 8 reduction in staff. We're actually pretty well flat with the current year. We're at about 110.5 versus 110.6. So, and that has to do with again, a lower retirement rate, the retirees, and the positions that were reduced. And then the one that should be near and dear to all of us is the ending fund balance. This goes along with all the other pictures, but looks like it has a happy ending for this year. So should be above 15 million. I fully expect that to be closer to 16 million before the year is over.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long ways. We have. From that 3.4 up to 15. It's a lot of good work. So unless there's any questions, that's...
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and everything that you've done and that you have done in your department on getting us there, because I know it wasn't an easy task.
Yeah, no, it's not.
And we definitely appreciate that, because at one point there it was looking pretty bleak.
It was looking bleak, but I will say, as I always have, it's all the employees came together.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 5% reduction. It was
Definitely.
the step freezes. So it was an absolute team effort to get there. So.
Yeah, that it is. So you ready for me to do a motion on that
Yes,
last report?
yes, please.
So at this time, I'll take a motion on the 2018-2019 budget hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Madell, supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes,
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item E, please.
Okay, thank you again. This is actually just the formal approval of the budget.
Okay. At this time, I'll take a motion.
Approval.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Any support?
Support.
Supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item F, please.
Okay, thank you again. This is the Department of Treasury application. That's a resolution that requires approval by the board to send back to the Department of Treasury for approval of the bond.
Does anything need to be read into record?
No.
Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox,
Support.
supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item G.
All right, thank you again. This is a resolution to join the Michigan Liquid Asset Fund Plus, or MILAF. This is a pooled investment for school districts and governments that provides, I believe, a little more safety for principal and also has some attractive returns. I'll use it as, when the bond passes, this will be a very good investment vehicle to compare to other investments that the district might have and compare for safety.
Move approval.
Okay, moved by Mr. Cox,
Support.
supported by Dr. Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm Mr. Cox over here. Sorry about that.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Where are we at? H.
All right, thank you again. This last item is a request to issue a request for quotes or proposals for a program manager, owner, representative to represent us in the bond project.
Definitely. At this time, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Mrs. Madell?
We had two different things that we were looking at on the presentation.
No, well, it's called a program manager / owner's representative. They represent us,
Well,
the
one said
district.
agency and the other said something else. Weren't they two different entities or two different methods or?
Oh, yeah, but this is going with the owner's rep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
different.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I was a little confused.
The other is the one that we currently
Yes.
work with,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Larson.
Thank
Schuyler.
you.
Moving on to item number 402.18, review and approval human resource items. Dr. Holt.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I would like to bring forward to you for the position of Assistant Superintendent of Employee Community and Governmental Relations, Mrs. Jill Simmons. Mrs. Jill Simmons has been a remarkable employee here with Wayne Westland Community School District. She went to the Eastern Michigan University for her bachelor's degree, received her master's degree from Penn State University. She has worked as an office manager within Human Resources, a people service coordinator, and she started here in 2010, in November of 2010, here with us in Wayne Westland as a human resources specialist, worked her way up to a human resources director, and in January I did ask you, bring her to the board to be approved for senior executive director. Since the departure of Mrs. Peck, who was the Assistant Superintendent of Professional Learning and Accountability, we are not filling the way you can look at this is we're not going to backfill Mrs. Peck's position. We're going to put Mrs. Simmons as the assistant superintendent, and we will not have the senior executive director position. So cabinet will now just be the three assistant superintendents and chief financial and operations officer.
And my understanding is that Ms. Simmons will also be taking on some additional,
She is. She took
Okay.
on a significant amount of Mrs. Peck's work, including all of professional learning will now be in employee, community, and governmental relations. She also took on certain pieces of the data analysis, and certain pieces of it also went with Mrs. Curry. So the two of them split up the work and agreed to do that for the organization as a whole. And so that speaks to the character, in my opinion, of Mrs. Simmons. And what I can say about her is I could not be more proud to have someone of her caliber working in Wayne Westland. So I ask that you approve her.
thank you. At this time, I'll take a motion.
Move.
Moved by Dr. Weaver, supported by Ms. Hines. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Mrs. Madell?
Is Mrs. Simmons still gonna be doing employee work? Okay.
Yes.
How's that gonna work when it's contract time? Because, you know, working on all of the contracts that we have is very time consuming.
Yes.
And how are we gonna manage this?
So we also have a director in the department, that's Mrs. Victoria. And so before, the contracts were mainly run by the unions were run by the two directors. So now Ms. Simmons has herself, and we have Victoria. We also have a director of professional learning. So the professional learning, she doesn't have to do herself. We have Julie Rutherford, who is the director of professional learning. So Ms. Simmons has taken over the oversight, and Mr. Larson Scheidler also helps with negotiations. So it's truly a team effort.
Okay, because I was gonna say, otherwise we're gonna have to amend the budget for a cape for superhero, because that's an awful lot of contracts, and they all come due just about the same
At
time.
exactly the same time.
So as soon as you finish with one,
They
then
pop-
you have to go to the next one, and something's gonna get missed, but obviously there's enough backup here.
There is, I think, and truth be told, we truly work as a team. And so that's when Mr. Larson Scheidler steps in, that's when Mrs. Curry would step in, or Dr. Townsell, especially during contract time. So what we are doing now, right now for next year, is outlining what our year is going to look like and our monthly priorities so that we can step in for one another. It doesn't come as a surprise. There were a lot of things this year that came as a surprise to us because we just didn't know what to expect. Now that we know what to expect, we can plan ahead for it.
Okay.
And Mrs. Simmons is confident she
Yeah.
can handle it, and I believe in her.
The journey requires her to be fierce, and she's up for the task. Any other questions?
Pump her full
Okay.
of a lot of vitamins.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Congratulations.
She was so nervous, y'all. I have to say it. Well done.
No, now is the time to be nervous.
Did you want to say anything? You don't have to. It's up to
I
you.
just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited to expand my role in the district and to work more closely with the Office of Academic Excellence. I really do enjoy the team that we've built here.
Fair enough. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 403.18, Head Start Monthly Report. Mrs. Madell.
In front of you, you have required by law our monthly report for May. Their fiscal year has started anew because they start before the end of the school year for us. And they are in the process of registering for next year. I need to point out, and I can't say this enough, we run a full-time program over there, full-day program. So if this is something that a parent needs out there in the community, we have this now. It's not all half-time, a couple days a week. So make sure that you look into this program. I highly recommend it for our kids.
Okay, at this time, I'll take a motion to accept Dr. Madell. At this time, I'll take a motion to accept Mrs. Madell's Head Start report.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cox. Anybody support? Supported by Mr. Buckaloo. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Hines, yes. Ms. Madell?
Yes.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Let the record show 6-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 404.18, Superintendent Report.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to our school board. Again, we've made it through the month of June, and getting to this time of year with the budget finally done, or at least approved so we can move forward, is huge for us. I do want to say that this next year coming up, we have put together an amazing team to do quality work for our school district. And we are elevating the expectations of not only ourselves, but one another and our children. The expectations have been elevated here in Wayne Westland. Another piece that I'm very passionate about, and we are making sure that we have our administrative guidelines and our processes inside of the district to adhere to our belief systems that we believe about children and we believe about one another. And creating those processes and procedures here in the district is going to be a huge feat. And so we are starting small, and the start this year was mainly on getting our formats and our templates in order so that we can now know how we do business here in Wayne Westland. There have been, this being my 9th month here, I have found time and time again, as have my colleagues, that we do things differently depending on the person that we're dealing with or the school site that we're dealing with, and bringing things in order for us to do things well as a district is critical for us to operate efficiently. That being said, this next year will be focused on elevating our expectations and creating and following processes and procedures for us as a district that are actually documented and written down that we can refer back to. And so knowing that it may cause some consternation amongst folks, our rule, I won't say a rule of thumb, but I just did. Our rule is that we will make sure that our processes and procedures, first and foremost, do not harm our children. Secondly, work in the favor of our employees and those who are doing business with our children. We have to make sure that this is a priority for us. Any policy or program or rule that hurts a child is unacceptable. Therefore, as we move forward, I will be taking a strong stance on anything that harms children, and this goes to the cream, whether it's bagels and cream cheese versus a cheese sandwich or whatever it may be. Our focus in the Office of Academic Excellence and our business maintenance and instructional operations and employee, community, and governmental relations is to do right by children in our community first. That being said, I thank everyone. I wish you a wonderful summer. Please, please, please take advantage of the opportunities that we have in our community, especially at our libraries. If you haven't gone to our website to find out what is available at our libraries and our local organizations, please do, because there is a lot available. If you need any kind of child care or after school care or summer care, Champions is available at our school sites, and we just recently were approved for, I want to say it's 5, but it could be 7 more school sites for Bright Futures.
I thought it was 7.
It's 7, okay. And then with the additional 5 schools that we plan on applying for, I believe it's in 2 years, we'll have all of our schools that will have Bright Futures in a few years. So we are looking at being that whole community one-stop shop for educating our children, both academically and social-emotionally. With that being said, I wish everyone a good night, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. 405.18, citizen comments on non-agenda items, and seeing none, we're going to move on to 406.18, review and recommendations, Board of Education. Ms. Hines.
I'd like to thank Haley for the Pledge of Allegiance. I also like to congratulate Ms. Jill Simmons for her promotion. I just had 2 minor things. There's the event over in Inkster at the Booker T. Dozier Rec Center. It's great for the children. It's a free 2-day camp. It's called the Future of Inkster Leadership Academy, and you don't have to live in Inkster. But what it is with the state police, Inkster Police, U of M, Detroit Job Corps. It's a program free for children to help them with public speaking, interview skills, resume writing, financial literacy, and law enforcement versus student basketball game at the end. So it's just something to kind of help the kids out, something extra to do, and it helps them for their career. They explore different careers. So you would contact Officer Lebo at the Inkster Police Department, and the number is 313-400-5387, and it's going to be June 27th and June 28th at the Booker T. Dozier Recreation Center from like 8 to 4. And there's one more academy that I just found out about. It's called the ACE Camp, and it's for children who are interested in the aviation career. So that's going to be starting July 30th through August the 3rd. And it's a really awesome program for kids who's interested in aviation. It's like a week program, and the contact person will be Ramon Crow at 313-405-9089. And it is a cost, like a $50 refundable application, but it's something that's really interesting. They help children choose different kind of careers outside the box.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mr. Buckaloo?
Yes. With some reservation, I'd like to congratulate you, Ms. Simmons, on your new expanded role. We'll see what you think of it in 6 months. Thank you, Mr. Luxenscheidler, for your presentation today and for getting us from 2% to 14%. That's kind of a nice improvement in our fund equity. I'm a little disappointed that we don't have more people here tonight. In fact, we don't have any people here tonight. And this is maybe the most important meeting of the year. This is when we rectify the old budget and establish the new one. It's a night when we saw a presentation on a tremendous transformation that we have planned for the school district. And I'd like to take a second to thank Mr. Wills and Mr. Nelson for their presentations today. $158 million is what we hope to spend. That is a tremendous sum of money. But if we think of it in terms of an investment in changes, if we don't allow people to say, hey, you're closing buildings, you're losing students, why do you need $158 million? If we're ready to tell them, it's the investment that we need to bring this school district fully into the 21st century with the kinds of programs and the kinds of facilities that we need. And there's a great deal of fidelity in what we're doing as well. We're not cutting corners, but we are saving money wherever we can. There's a plan to invest the bond money that isn't being spent at the moment. And while we're not going to get back in as much in interest collected as we are in interest paid, we're getting something. We're getting something. The use of a project manager brings with it additional savings in the area of ensuring the work that we're going to do. We're hiring a professional to acquire the bonds for us. Every bond comes with an interest rate, and those rates vary. And every bond comes with a fee attached to it, and those fees vary. By using a professional to acquire those bonds, we're going to get the best rates available. And the most simple thing is the idea that we start paying back our bond at 6 months as opposed to 12 months. The estimate is almost $230 million over the term of the bond issue over the 25 years. Breaking it down into 3 phases lets the community see just what is going to happen to their children, to their children's buildings. And it also gives us an opportunity to approach this project in a meaningful, in a thoughtful way. And I can't imagine what changes we would make to this revitalization of Wayne Westland schools that hasn't already been considered and isn't already available to us to put in place. We now need the support of the stakeholders in the community. All of the people who live in this community are stakeholders. And we need to engage them and convince them of the wisdom of supporting an improved educational system, an improved Wayne Westland schools. This is what we need to do in the year ahead of us. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Buckaloo. Dr. Weaver?
Yes, congratulations, Mrs. Simmons. I wanted to add my voice to that, and those are my comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weaver. Mr. Cox?
Thank you, Shauna. I would just like to piggyback on what Tom Buckaloo said. These are exactly the comments that I want to make. First of all, Jill, congratulations on you can see the enthusiasm in your face, by the way, every time we have a meeting, so I wish you the best of success. having an owner's representative oversee a $158 million construction project is just prudent. If, first of all, we even had the personnel with the time to oversee this, the question I would have is, why do we have personnel in our school district who have time to do a $158 million bond implementation? We don't have, and the people that we do have are educators, and they're not construction managers. I believe that the owner's representative will pay for itself by virtue of the professional job that they bring and the efficiencies that they bring to the project. Also, things like the Michigan Liquid Asset Fund, the fact how we're going to manage the bond, how we're going to accelerate payments of the principal, those issues alone will likely pay the cost of it. And we cannot afford to just look at the amount of money that's being spent, but it has to be done efficiently. This is all happening while kids are in school. And it has to be done without hiccups, smooth, around the kids coming and going from the school buildings, and it has to be done within schedule. So I think we're fortunate to have people like that, although I know that there aren't too many firms that have the technical expertise to manage projects that large. So why do we have a project that large? And Mr. Buckler, you also talked to this. We do because this school district has to make changes. We are not happy with the test results that our students have gotten. There's been a tremendous amount of changes in personnel aimed at addressing that issue. I noticed that all those changes in personnel do not come at the expense of our fund balance. And I think that's an important distinction. This is a reallocation of resources that have been allocated and are being reallocated, hopefully to achieve the greater efficiency that we're all looking for. That's the reason we're doing all of this. And Carol, Vice President Medell brought up, well, where do all these monies come from? And Mr. Larson Scheidler, you certainly have gotten a lot of credit for the 14% or $14 million fund balance. I wonder, I know you didn't do it all by yourself, but I do appreciate you bringing things to us as you have tonight. We heard from Mr. Nelson and also Mr. Wills. These things are going to work smooth for our district. I know that it's very easy sitting as a member of the board. I was here 20 years ago when we submitted to the public a bond issue that they approved. And one of the things that we told the people at that time was that this money will be spent exactly like we say it will be spent. Nothing will be wasted. And that board and subsequent boards kept their word. And they implemented exactly as they said they would implement. And at that time, they levied 5.5 mills in order to pay for it. Through efficiencies that we've realized as a consequence of our reduced student population, we now have, we're looking at a full mill reduction in what people were previously paying. So the question is, well, if we have declining enrollment, why doesn't it cost less? Well, it does cost less. And that's what these projections are saying. And although it's easy to look at what happens if we have an economic downturn, the reality is we do not have an economic downturn. Our unemployment costs are down. Our property values are rising. Unemployment is down. Actually, the economy is growing at about 4%. And just as a declining economy has cost us student population, has cost us in revenue, an improving economy is likely to do exactly the opposite. And I tend to think it probably will. These things go in cycles. You can't always go down. These things level off, and I think it's going to level off. And when it does level off, we have to, as Mr. Buckalew said, have a state-of-the-art school district so that these kids can get the best education possible. And speaking to what you said earlier, Dr. Holt, trying to develop an atmosphere so that kids are free to learn, while at the lunch counter they're being embarrassed because that does not speak to our mission. So it certainly isn't a little issue, and I'm glad that you recognize it as that, and President Walker, I'm glad that you see it as that too. That's all I have for tonight. As you said, Tom, it's been a big meeting on finances, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Madell?
I agree, Mr. Cox, with a lot of what you had to say about construction manager and about the focus of the school district and where we need to go in the future, because otherwise we might as well sell the buildings all off and close the doors and send the kids everyplace else, because we're not offering them a quality education that they expect. So Mrs. Hines referred to a couple of summer programs. There are a lot of summer programs out there that community organizations are running. All I have to do is just stop into Jefferson Barnes, and they have all kinds of community group information available to let you know where you can take your kids for different activities. And I know the library, Westland Library, is always good for summer programs and summer reading programs also. And I'm pretty sure that if Westland's doing it, Wayne is not too far behind. So don't forget about our Meet Up and Eat program also during the summer, with the exception of a couple weeks there around, I think it's around 4th of July, when we're down for summer school. And then we'll be back when summer school's back. Also, our JROTC kids are going off to Alpena for leadership camp at the last week of June also. So there's a lot of activity going on in this school district for it being summer vacation.
Thank you, Mrs. Madell. Dr. Holt, I heard you gasp.
Yes, only because, and I started to write Dr. Weaver a note. I just wanted to announce to our community that we are currently accepting applications or just volunteers for our bond committee. If you want to know more about what's going on with the bond and you want to be involved in this process, or you just want to be heard as far as how we move forward, we do have a bond committee that we're currently accepting volunteer applications for. There's one on the website where you can become part of the bond committee, or you can just stop into our office and fill out a quick piece of information online. It's a Google form. We literally are keeping this as open and transparent as possible. So we do ask that if you're going to be part of the bond committee, that you can come to the first few meetings, but then we're going to keep the group steady, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in making these decisions, and we want you and our community involved. So if you would like to be part of the bond committee, please go online, reach out to any of us here. You can reach out to any of the staff members from central office, and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. But we want your opinions and your thoughts in this process now versus later.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. I just want to say thank you, each and everyone, for taking your time out to come today. I know it was a long meeting, but it was an important meeting, and we appreciate all of the employees in the district and all the hard work and effort that you put in. Yesterday was Father's Day. Hope you all had a great Father's Day yesterday. And just be safe this summer and read. I tell you every year, read a book. Just read one book. It'll make a difference when you come back. With all that being said, at this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Hines, supported by Mr. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.